Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special live edition. I have my husband here. He is on the other side of the room. There he is. And we are just doing a live reaction to some criticisms that my show, Gently Led Sisters, has received over the last few weeks. Many of you don't know, but there's been quite a large vocal public would you call it a war almost going on right now?
Tomfoolery.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And because of my husband and I being very vocally against spousal discipline, wife abuse, excessive punishments for kids, different things like that, because of our very public stance against that, we have been the target, I believe, as a diversion. Gently Led Sisters has kind of become insult to some of the preachers left in this group, and so a lot of attention has come our way because of that. But I did want to start out by reading. The reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to basically reiterate the purpose of my channel and why this channel exists and what we stand for and what we don't stand for. But I did want to read this post I did a few days ago. The funny thing about the term gently led, and that this is now the face of feminism, is that it was taken from a very specific verse. Back when I first started this channel almost 6 years ago, I used the verse from Isaiah 40:11. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young. When preachers and their lackeys mock this, they are mocking the way that Jesus Christ leads his flock. They are also mocking the way that Jacob led his family. Genesis 33:13 says, and he said unto them, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men shall overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord unto Seir. True men of God know that leadership doesn't lie in brute strength or overpowering your wife or children. Being a true leader requires the character and goodness to lead in a way without terrorizing your family, leading in a way where your family will follow you willingly with love and respect. So that is where the term Gently Led Sisters came from, and I wanted to kind of put that on there. So my husband will be playing some clips. I have not watched these sermons. I was the target, and one of my friends, Amanda Gander, shout out since they like to name her.
Amanda Slander.
Amanda Slander. Even
Pastor
though
Amanda Slander.
Yes, Pastor Amanda Slander. Even though they have not said what she's slandered about. I think the slander part is because we are going with the testimony of the 4 children. But can you just kind of cover the 4 witnesses thing?
Well,
Over with I asked you to kind of go into the 4 witnesses part with the whole abuse thing, so
yeah.
Start there.
So basically, just to kind of correct one thing, I don't believe the new IFB stands for abuse. In fact, we're going to show some clips to prove that they are not for abuse. They are not for spousal abuse. They are not for spousal corporal punishment. They have proved that in the past from their preaching. The reason we're being attacked is because we are currently standing against the new narrative that's in the new IFB, and that is because of the fact that Pastor Anderson has been exposed for beating his wife with an electrical cord along with his children, and obviously we're all against that. Obviously everyone in the new IFB would have been against that before it was revealed Pastor Anderson was doing it. They are distracting by coming after us, accusing us of promoting feminism and all that kind of thing. But I'm going to show clips to show these guys don't believe in doing the type of stuff that Pastor Anderson has been accused of doing, and has even, according to Jonathan Shelley, the stuff that he has told him didn't contradict what the kids are saying. And so I don't believe they believe in this stuff. I believe they are afraid to condemn it because of who is guilty of it. But so that's the first thing. And as far as 4 witnesses, I mean, we have 4 of his children. Okay, now if everybody wants to distract and talk about the tranny channel and all that kind of stuff, that's irrelevant. Okay, we have the testimony of his 4 oldest kids. Now think about this: if Pastor Anderson is telling the truth, then I think you can make a safe guess that he has raised some of the 4 most evil pastor's kids I've ever seen. I mean, 4 kids in a row coming out and saying the kind of things that they're saying about their dad in unison, not several years after the fact. I mean, we've got some that have been out of the home for a few years, but one who currently is still legally under her parent, in her parents' custody, had to escape custody. These are all, to me, credible witnesses. But at the same time, if they're lying, boy, he's raised some pretty evil kids. If they really did turn on him and tell all these stories about their dad for $1,000, what evil children, what did this guy do to raise up such evil seed? And so again, he hasn't even given any reason to deny. I mean, does he deny beating his wife with an electrical cord and his kids with an electrical cord? I saw him in a sermon mocking the idea of Jesus making a scourge of small cords. Okay, now obviously, does anybody think those cords were rubber coated with metal inside of them? Because there was a scarlet cord that was put outside a window. A cord can be made out of cloth or material. I'm not saying that's what Jesus' scourge was made of. It probably was something stronger than that. But either way, why are we trying to justify clearly barbaric and abusive behavior? And it's just because he's been exposed, and the only thing he fears is people thinking he's disqualified, which is why he doxed his brother weeks after he supposedly abducted her. Why wasn't he putting the word out to everybody weeks ago about his daughter being abducted and having people stake out his house weeks ago? Why did he wait until everyone was using that as kind of evidence that he doesn't have his house in control? And my original claim was just that, on my Facebook post that stirred a lot of stuff up, is that his house was not in order. He was not ruling well his house. Look at what he's producing. And I also believe what has been produced is reflective of the over-the-top preaching and the over-the-top punishments, over-the-top everything, because he has built a following, by being over-the-top, by being crazy, and he has attracted crazy. And in order to not look like a hypocrite to the crazies, you got to be a little crazy. And so, in my opinion, the best thing he could have done for himself, for his family, was just humbly step down, and then he can go back to just parenting like a human being rather than a way to, appease a bunch of crazy people. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and this is also, I want to publicly say that I truly care and love this family. And when this first came out, I couldn't even really talk much about it because I felt so sick over it. I truly do and have considered Jojana a friend for the last 4 years, even when we had the separation, when around the time of COVID, we separated. We could not condone a lot of the behavior and things that were going on. And since then, most of the new IFB has considered us an enemy, and that's fine. But I've always liked her as a person, and I'll probably just get reprobated by a lot of the people that hate them right now for saying that, but I truly did love her and care for her. And my biggest wish is that there be repentance. And obviously we have completely different parenting styles, and so that there would be repentance, and that both parents would just get help and work on the relationships with their kids, because there's so many kids left in that home, and they do need to they need to realize that it's not normal to have over the top stuff like that. It's not normal for a wife to be hit by her husband. That's not normal. That's not what a Christian home looks like. And I really, my biggest desire is that relationships will be mended and that they would get help and repent. But so far, it doesn't look like that's happening, which makes me really, really sad. So I don't want to do any personal attacks on her. My main beef is with him, honestly. And I know there's probably been a lot of hurt in her life, and I'm not condoning anything that she did, but I truly do love and care for that family, and I wish to see that relationships were healed. So I did want to say that too.
Now, on a lighter note, though, we do want to play some clips, and just because some of them are pretty funny, but also too, as a pastor, somebody who puts sermons together, I can tell when somebody's preaching the Bible versus when they're just manipulating. And we are going to see some serious manipulation in this, but also for fun, just a little thing to just keep everybody glued to the edge of their seat. At the end, too, for some more lightheartedness, we are going to reveal the NIFB board game. And this is an actual game that is so stinking fun, and it is so therapeutic if you've ever been in the new IFB.
It did help us a lot about 3 or 4 years ago.
I forgot how long ago we got this. Now, I'm not going to reveal the maker of this. NIFB board game. It's got a whole board and everything. I'm not going to reveal the maker of this. If he wants to come forward and reveal himself and sell these to people, then I would welcome him to do that. I think he would probably sell a bunch of these. And so it is reprobate tested, reprobate approved, and it's almost prophetic because the 5 guys in the front are all that's left in the new IFB. You got Pastor Anderson and Jimenez, of course, and
supposedly,
and Mejia and Thompson and Shelley. So this is fun. We will show you how this game works. We will do a promo for it, and we won't make $1 off of it because I did not come up with this. It was sent to me, and it was a great blessing.
It was sent to us as a gift.
Yeah. And so if he wants to make some money off of this, then that's great. So you will be blessed, and I just want to be a blessing. But anyway, let's go. We're going to show some clips because, again, at the end of the day, the biggest problem the new IFB has with us, it's not doctrinal. It's not even our beliefs. You're going to see some. We'll show some evidence too. Their beliefs line up with ours about abuse. Again, though, but because they found out it contradicts Pastor Anderson, and they cannot, ever come out against him, they've had to update some things. And so we are seeing some stupidity of epic proportions where people are like, well, it's not in the Bible, to beat your wife, but it's not condemned either. But these guys were condemning it at one time, and rightfully so. And I hope they go back to condemning it because the clips where they say the stuff right was good, and they were right, and they need to go back to preaching that. But now they're probably going to be afraid to. But let's start out listening to the good preaching. And so let's start out with good old Shelley himself, and let's listen to what he has to say about this.
Islam teaches that you should beat your wife. I didn't come up with that. The Bible forbids that. Why in the world would you strike anybody, especially your wife? Okay, a pastor is supposed to be no striker. And you know what? A pastor is an example to all men, whether you're a pastor or not. No men should be strikers, period. But what does the Quran say? Strike them! What kind of a wicked false religion?
Well, yeah.
Hey, man. I've seen some guys getting criticized for using the striker argument.
Yeah, really.
Interestingly enough. But,
how long ago was that? Do you know?
I don't know. It looks like it was when he was meeting in a hotel. So, yeah, I don't know for sure. But I thought that was pretty funny. Let's do another one here. I think it's from that same sermon. I'm going to put it on full screen. But, all right, here we go.
I will teach and train my wife how to live her life. But you know what? I do it by example, not by striking. Men should be leaders, not cruel dictators or something. Not Or what's the American extreme? Some effeminate, queer-looking dude that lets his wife order him around. I'm not going to do either. I will rule my household. I will lead my wife. But you know what? I'm not going to touch her in any way that would harm her. That is wicked. Okay? And we need to learn the generals. Notice she's the weaker vessel. I give honor unto the weaker vessel. I don't strike the weaker vessel. I don't put down the weaker vessel.
Sounds like you're preaching right there.
That's good preaching right there. I mean, again, these guys, they've got to, when they just try to preach the Bible, they do pretty good. When they try to defend the new IFB or defend Pastor Anderson, their preaching turns into epic garbage. But it almost sounded like what he was describing there was like gently leading. You know, he mentioned, not, striking the weaker vessel, giving honor to the weaker vessel, but not being an effeminate. And again, that's not right either. Guys shouldn't be this effeminate, passive, let their wife walk all over them. But now it's like the new narrative is, if you're against beating your wife, then you're just like this effeminate, feminist. And so it's just, they're putting up this false dichotomy.
Can we please touch on, though, I did want to mention this. I don't think you have a clip of this. Last night, Stephen Anderson's sermon, he was talking about how there's this unbiblical false doctrine being taught by men like you, Pastor Berzins, Pastor Robinson. He named all of them. He really had a problem with Pastor Jones last night. But he mentioned how it's unbiblical because basically, I could probably pull up the exact quote and read it. But basically, as a husband, you have no way to enforce your wife submitting to you. Can you touch on that? Because little stuff keeps coming out in his preaching where it's almost like he's alluding to the fact that he has done things in his authority to make his wife submit.
Right. Yeah. So it appears that the idea is that if you're saying, I won't spank my teenagers or I won't spank my wife, that you're basically just, you have nothing to rule, you have no way to rule her.
Right.
And it's just like, actually a whole bunch of people are doing just fine in this area. Many husbands are leading their wives and they're leading their children, and they don't have to do anything crazy. They've never laid a hand on their wife in a harmful way. They've never had to inflict pain on their wife to get her to submit or to punish her for not submitting. They've never had to do that. They've been able to train their children to where they don't need to spank them when they're teenagers. Of course, technically, you have the authority to do that because the Bible doesn't give an age on that kind of thing. We're just saying, what's wrong in your home? What's wrong with your kids that you still need to beat the tar out of them on the backside when they're a teenager?
Right.
They should be past that by now. There is no verse in the Bible that says the age that a child needs to be out of diapers. But if your child is still in diapers at 12, and some of us think there's something wrong with your potty training techniques,
right,
we're right. And just because we don't have a verse doesn't mean we're wrong. And so when you're just making this, if you just have to beat your kid until he's 18, you did something wrong, or something is very wrong with your child. And so,
let me read the exact words. He said, and
say the exact words or you'll get accused of railing.
Yes, I know. And this is off the transcript of the YouTube video. And to just get up and say that the wife's submission to her husband is 100% voluntary on her part, and that the husband has no authority to enforce anything. She will obey when she wants to obey because she loves Jesus, but the husband can't enforce anything. That's what's being taught right now. You know what? You think I'm lying? Go listen to Joe Jones' stupid, rambling bullcrap sermon. In fact, just listen to the last 10 minutes because that's where he says the dumb crap that I just said. That's what's being taught now, and it's the same crap that Jason Robinson's teaching. It's the same crap David Berzins is teaching. And then a little bit later, minute marker, the hour 51 in, he said, I'm not going to let children rule over me. I'm not going to let children terrorize me. I'm not going to let a woman rule over me. I'm not going to let a woman terrorize me. And the real losers today, the real sad situation is the people who have to live with this doctrine that's being taught. You know who the real victims are? The men in these churches who are being emasculated by their own pastor. Amen. And you know what? I remember this from the old IFB. I remember sitting in an old IFB church and listening to pastors get up and tear down the husband's authority tear down the father's authority, and it made me mad. And I remember thinking, you know what? When I'm a pastor, I'm not going to preach this crap. I'm going to teach it straight like the Bible says. Those are direct quotes of what he said last night.
So he feels sympathy for those guys, even though the rest of us can't imagine anything worse than being in his situation.
Yes.
You know, because obviously, again, his application of scripture is really, really bad. Anybody can get up and read a scripture, and of course that is true. But then how you always need to pay attention when a preacher gets up and reads a verse. Obviously, if they read it from the Bible, it's Bible. It's authoritative. But what is their application that they are making proper? And with a lot of this bad preaching we're going to see, that's exactly what's happening. They're making bad application. Now, I will say too, for example, in the honor your father and mother, I believe very strongly in honoring your father and mother. I do believe, and for sure, that in some of these videos that the Anderson kids have put out, they have crossed the line and dishonored their parents. You should not. I don't care what your parents did. There's some, you shouldn't be calling them some of these names that I will not repeat. There, you know, there are some personal things that you don't need to be revealing to everybody. I don't care how bad the behavior's been, and the behavior of Pastor Anderson has just been awful and embarrassing and psychotic. Not enough he deserved to get locked up in a nut house. That wasn't right. Okay, I believe his insanity that I've been seeing is a spiritual insanity. I don't think he needs to be locked up in a nut house. And yeah, stop trying to make him look like a martyr. People,
Yeah.
good night. He's all, you know, otherwise you're going to have Chris Segura's preaching about him being Job, the greatest man alive, and the Apostle Paul and Peter and everybody, with all the positive characteristics.
Can we
and
also
none of the
talk?
negative.
I know we're getting on rabbit trails, but I wanted you to address the Chris Segura thing with Job's kids being wicked, because I'm seeing this repeated now everywhere on Facebook. He just made up a new doctrine.
So I was just talking with somebody about new IFB preaching and one of the differences between new IFB and old IFB. Often in the old IFB, you hear really dumb things from the pulpit. Absolutely. But typically what does not happen when you hear something really dumb preached in the old IFB is a whole bunch of people then going and repeating it. Most old IFB people know that preachers say dumb stuff. And when they hear dumb things, they recognize it and they think, wow, that was stupid. And then that's the end of it. In the new IFB, when dumb stuff gets preached, everybody repeats it.
They do.
And Chris Segura was acting like Job's kids were probably bad, and that was why they died. No.
He said they were partying it up.
Yeah, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary. Job was offering sacrifice just in case they had cursed God in their hearts. So obviously, Job hadn't even seen anything on the outside to offer up a sacrifice for, but he wanted to do such due diligence with his kids that he's even offering up sacrifices in case they did something in their heart. But then whenever Satan comes and he's accusing Job to God, you know, God doesn't point out anything negative. Satan, the only thing negative he points out is he's saying he is accusing Job of only obeying God because of all the good God did for him. So he's accusing Job of having bad motives. And then when Job continues doing the right thing after God takes everything, he's like, well, it's because you didn't touch his body. If you touch his body, then he'd be like other people. But there is no evidence that there was any actual sin. God used Job to teach a lesson to all of us on patience, and God rewarded Job greatly, but there is zero evidence that his children did any sins. But because the Kool-Aid crowd can't help but read passages in the Bible about Bible characters and just see Pastor Anderson all over the pages, and since, of course, Pastor Anderson's going to be an equal to Job, if Pastor Anderson has bad kids, Job had to have bad kids too. And so, you know, safe assumption. No, it's stupid. It's stupid. And if somebody in my church got up and was preaching something that dumb and claiming I was the greatest man alive, I wouldn't be like posting that was a banger sermon. I'd be like, ugh.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, and I've had people flatter me for it, and I'm usually embarrassed, and it's like, come on, man, you know, and you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but good night. That was awful. And the fact that anyone repeated that, it just shows the difference between the old IFB mentality and new IFB mentality. Old IFB says lots of dumb stuff, but most of the time it's not taken and repeated. But we got to get to some of these other clips. Let's do another good clip. Let me see. Hopefully I'll get this right. I got to show this on YouTube. This is Pastor Thompson actually preaching truth at Faithful Word.
Number 9, child rearing techniques. There's another one. Weird child rearing techniques. Punishments that are over the top. The Bible says we're just supposed to spank them. Spank them with a rod, and that's what the Bible says. It doesn't say to do all these other weird things with them. So it is a red flag if someone has some weird over the top, child rearing techniques.
He's going to get in trouble for preaching that particular truth at Faithful Word. Again, it's so funny watching these guys preach the same stuff that some of us have been criticized for preaching, and especially when you see them doing that at Faithful Word. And that is a huge red flag. When people go over the top, it's typically showing a need to persuade something. And again, Pastor Anderson, he has gained a following by being over the top and crazy. That gets attention. And here's another difference between old IFB and new IFB too. In the old IFB, you always had preachers that were over the top and crazy. You had the Phil Kids, was a great example of that. But nobody took it that serious. We found it entertaining. It fired us all up. It got us all excited, but nobody really thought to go, take that seriously. When Jeff Owens did his famous, don't want to say to get in trouble on YouTube, you're all familiar with. Nobody actually thought, let's go actually start hunting some people. Nobody thought that. Everybody in this, woke society that we live in this permissive of abomination society, they just liked hearing somebody rip on the sodomites. And nobody took it that serious. Problem is, in the new IFB, they've attracted such crazies that unfortunately, when they hear preaching that's over the top, that maybe was meant to just rile everybody up a little bit, to toughen up a little bit, some of these people just go too far. And, from my experience, Pastor Anderson, while he definitely has done some of that, I think his followers have been worse. His imitators, like Shelley and Mejia and stuff, and Shelley especially, is always going the most over the top on these things. And it's just, you're embarrassed for him.
Secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah, listen to some of the stuff that he's preached. And so, speaking of Shelley, let's go watch this clip. This one is hilarious. So that wait a minute. I do have one more good preaching that I need to show. Oh no, I didn't put it on there.
What was it?
It was Ben the Baptist preaching the truth.
Oh.
Because I just saw a clip of him today, refusing.
Talking about you're a piece of trash or a piece of garbage or something.
Stink. I thought I had that one up. So we're not going to be able to share any good preaching from Ben the Baptist. It was only 7 seconds. That was all we could find in the entire internet of good preaching from him. But all right, let's watch this one here.
I don't care how gently women lead other women. You know what? It says for a husband to be the one who teaches his wife.
Amen.
Oh, look who's on her show.
Oldie but goodie. This was
women are supposed to ask their husband what to do. And, some people get a little offended by this, but notice that it does not say, ask the other women in the church.
Not an argument.
Hey, you want to improve your marriage today? Ask your husband what you're supposed to do. Hey, I want to know, how to make this or do this or where to go or the homeschool or whatever. Ask your husband. Don't ask another lady. And it sure doesn't say, hey, you as a lady, start teaching all the other ladies what to do. No, notice it says,
literally
in verse
says
35. Let's read it again, because I'm reading the Bible. I don't know what you're reading. Look what it says.
I love that
if they will learn anything. Now, if you ask a Calvinist, they might not know what anything means. But let me tell you what anything means. Anything. Anything. And you know what? I don't care how gently women lead other women. You know what? It says for a husband to be the one who teaches his wife. Amen. Oh, I want to learn something. But women want to go around and they want to tell you what to do. There's how many blogs are there? I don't even know. There's like 1 million blogs out there and YouTube videos.
Are they all yours?
Women just want to go and tell every other woman what they're doing and how they do it. And it's big business. I'll tell you what, but it's not a meek
It's
and
not
quiet
big
spirit,
business.
number one.
I don't make any money off of
And
it.
it's also teaching other women not to submit to their own husbands, but submit to the block and end up critically thinking above and beyond what their husband's saying. I'm not saying don't be a critical thinker. What I am saying is you should let your husband lead you.
All right, so hang on. So obviously a husband should lead, but how much help did you get from me on like nursing?
Yeah,
when we
babe.
started having
Can you
kids?
tell me, why am I having these hormone problems?
Yeah, how much
can
of
you
a help
help
was
me
I
fix
on
those?
your hormonal things, on ladies' issues, on you know, it's
Baking
like,
bread, cooking, cleaning.
Yeah, and here's you want to know why my wife's always gone to other women for counsel on ladies, things like that, because if she knows me. If she would have come to me and said, "Hey, what do I do about this?" I'd have been like, "I have no idea. Go ask your mom. Go ask my mom."
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's one of the reasons too. I was very supportive of her doing these things, is because our culture is just getting so bad, and moms are not training their daughters and just teaching them a lot of things they need to know, especially about feminine stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about that stuff from the pulpit. I definitely can't speak from experience on that stuff. It would be very awkward for me. It would be very awkward for the women. It would be very awkward for all of the guys. And so when he's doing this thing, I'm just reading the Bible. Okay, well, let's actually read the Bible in context. Okay, you can't just take a phrase and then again, it's the application, ladies and gentlemen. All the Bible is the Word of God, but what kind of application is he making? Now, obviously, this wasn't long after we broke fellowship with him. So he doesn't want his ladies listening to my wife.
Yeah.
That's fine. Because we would influence people away from your church because your teaching is freakish and weird and bad. Okay. And so anybody who's going to that church, don't ask me for any advice or counsel, because I will lead you away from that nut house. But look what it says in 1 Corinthians 14:34. Let your women keep silence in the churches.
Amen.
For it is not permitted unto them to speak. Why? But they are commanded to be under obedience, as saith the law. So again, we should not put women in any type of authority, especially over the men in the church. That is shameful. And so if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. For it is a shame for women to speak in the church. Let all things be done. And then verse 4, let all things be done decently in order. So this is referring to church structure things. Okay. And so obviously, you do not put women in any type of position where they can usurp the authority of a man. And obviously, no woman should teach another woman to usurp the authority of a man. We've got a clip about that we'll get to. My wife does not teach you that, but my wife does teach ladies things that older women are supposed to teach the younger women. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, where does it say anything about teaching stuff? Well, it says in Titus 2:3 that the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Now, as the head of the home, obviously, I have delegated these things that are mentioned in Titus 2 to my wife. Now, I've never had to do that. I've never had to figure out how to keep a house clean while there's a whole bunch of kids all over the place and homeschooling. I mean, I guess I've had some experience. For the first year, I let you go to volleyball camp.
Oh, man, yes.
And I was like,
bad.
I was going to keep the house clean. She didn't want me to let the house get in trash while it was gone, because it would just be embarrassing, if somebody came over, and it's still a reflection of her, even if I'm not there. And so I worked hard. I worked so stinking hard, and I failed miserably. And so the next year, when it happened again, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to try. I will just clean it all up before she comes home. And man, that house got trashed. But then I got the kids together. We all worked hard. We got it all cleaned up. I got them out of the house till she got home, because if we'd have been there very long, it would have been trash. She came back and the house was clean. And she was so pleased with how clean the house was. But then later, when I admitted, yeah, it was trash all week. She was like, I can't believe you let that happen to my house. And so, obviously, if ladies have questions like, how do you manage a household? like that. How do you keep a house clean with nursing and all these different things? Don't ask me.
Don't ask my husband.
You know what I'm going to do if a lady came in our church came and asked about that? The Pastor Tommy, could you preach a sermon about how to manage a home as a lady? I'm like, no, go ask my wife because I'm not going to be any help. I don't know how to do it. And this is something that the older women teach the younger women. And so, it's pretty funny, which we got to play this clip right here because apparently, again, obviously what Shelley preached there was incredibly stupid. But again, in the old IFB, you hear stupid stuff. Everybody takes it as stupid. Nobody repeats it. Everybody moves on. In the new IFB, it gets repeated. Now, let's listen to what good old Thompson said.
Even Tommy McMurtry, yeah, I'll say his name too, because he's been nothing but a backstabber for a long time too. But you know, his wife is going around trying to teach everybody stuff and making 10-mile-long Facebook posts about how holy they are. They're these people right here, riding the coattails of great men, and then just to get to bottom feed off the bottom and get all these losers to follow them.
Okay.
All right. So what man's coattails did you ride on and like to learn how to teach women from?
I have no idea.
Going around trying to teach people stuff, 10-mile-long Facebook post. Listen.
About how holy we are. Okay, I
some
do.
Some things require instruction.
Yes.
And it's like, she does do long
posts.
I
do long posts, okay. But not about how holy we are.
Yeah.
Maybe about trying to live holy, but I've never claimed that I've reached this level of perfection. Anyone that's watched my show for any length of time knows that number one, I always say to do what your husband says. I say this works for me, but do what your husband says. Number two, I don't claim that I have all the answers or I know anything about anything. In fact, the more adults that I raise, the more kids that I raise, the less I know. And I like what you said yesterday. Can you kind of repeat that from yesterday's sermon about asking older, wiser people how they raise good kids and their response versus people that haven't raised good kids?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I do. This is how I was trained. This is how I was taught. I remember listening to my dad multiple times go up to older preachers who had raised godly children into adulthood that continued in godliness.
Yeah.
And my dad, he always wanted to know their secret. He always wanted to know what they did right. And he would always ask them. And typically, you would just get some kind of answer like, the Lord's just been good to us. You know, we don't know. We're just blessed. They would just give God the glory. And, and he would have to like twist somebody's arm to even get them to give any type of practical advice. Most of the time, they claim to have no clue. And I've done the same thing. And some of the most successful parents that I know, whenever I have asked them these questions, they're just like, I don't know how he did it, because in their minds, they've made a ton of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And they see all these mistakes they made, but they've seen this great product and they just give God the glory for it. Mm-hmm. When I was talking to Pastor Anderson, he said if he stood before God, he could look him in the eye and tell him he did everything right. I've never heard a successful parent make that claim ever, 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 ever. They are always just like, I don't know why the Lord's been so good to me. They've just given God the glory for it. And, typically, if you can twist people's arms and get some kind of nugget from them, it's pretty much just, be real, mm-hmm. Be loving, have patience, have some forgiveness. Your kids are going to mess up. Your wife's going to mess up, and nobody's ever said, spank them a little harder. We all do that. They want to preach about corporal punishment as if we haven't done that, as if that wasn't done to us. Of course we do all those things, but we do it in love. We do it in a way that, we have punishments that fit the crime, not a punishment that we can find somewhere in the Bible for something super serious. Our punishments fit the crime. It's not hard to figure out what that is. And so far, my kids have never done anything that required stripes from an electrical cord.
No.
And so again, man, if your kids were that rotten, again, I'd be interested in finding out how that happened. I kind of doubt it. I think he was probably just losing his temper. But I mean, the difference in his response to me and the response of successful parents was as different as the outcome of his kids and the people who I go to for advice on these things.
And Gian, I do, yes. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll definitely ask Anderson for advice on how to raise a funny son.
Oh, yeah.
Isaac's funny, but Anderson's funny too. I mean, he's a funny guy. He's an entertaining guy. And that's one of the things that draws people to him is he is funny. And Isaac came by that honestly yet again. You know,
well,
it's just
his
one of
kids clearly have some very impressive qualities that I definitely think they got from their dad. You know,
Yeah.
because Anderson has some impressive qualities,
Mhm.
but he also has, you know, like everybody, he has some major flaws, but he refuses to acknowledge any of them. He refuses to ever repent of anything, and you know, and he refuses to just humble himself and admit fault, admit mistakes,
Or surround himself with people who will, true friends who will tell him what needs to be said.
I have never met a successful parent who was not ready, anxious, and willing, and already had easily, openly admitted to making a lot of mistakes with their children. And the way he has been defensive of himself, it's astounding, the difference that we're seeing there. But that Thompson clip though was so fun.
We haven't even gotten to the Mejia stuff or
The Mejia
Shelley
stuff is
stuff.
the best. I only have one of the Shelley ones. I might save that one for last because it's I got to do a screen share on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to download it, but let's go ahead and watch this this one. Now, this right here is an example in this preaching. I say preaching. This is manipulation. Okay, I'm going to show you. I love revealing the tricks that preachers use to manipulate.
We've always done that.
I've always done that because it keeps me honest.
Yeah.
It helps protect my people from bad preaching, but also if they know all the tricks, then I can't use them. And if I ever find myself, you know, back against the wall because I'm being an idiot, I won't be able to use these things. I'll be forced to just get right. But I want you to watch. It's just a 30-second clip of Anderson, and I'm going to show you what he does here because everything he's going to say in this 36-second clip, I agree with. Right? I agree with everything he's saying in here. But at the same time, we all know what he was doing in this clip, and I'll show you exactly what that is. Let's check this out.
And guess what? If a woman is not submitted to her husband, she's going to be unhappy too. She's not going to like it. It's not like, oh, it's so cool, I'm so liberated. She's just, you know, she's going to look at her weak, pathetic little gently led husband, and she's going to say, oh, you're pathetic. See, you're pathetic. That's what she's thinking. It's like, oh, I love you. But in her heart, she's like, you're pathetic, you weak little wimp. Okay? Why? Because your desire shall be to your husband, and he'll rule over you. That's what the Bible says. Yeah, I don't like this. You know, you do. You just don't know it.
I agree 100%. And again, too, I agree with that statement. I've made this statement before. When you preach about women submitting to their husbands and the husband being the ruler over them and all of that, yeah, women do want that. I agree with that. You know, and a lot of times, too, they've been trained to respond negatively to that, but it is what they want. Everything he said there is true. Now, obviously, we're not going to watch the whole sermon, but what he did there, talking about the feminism and all that kind of stuff, is, you know, he has been accused of, and he appears to, if Jonathan Shelley is telling the truth, to have admitted to beating his wife with an electrical cord. Now, he said it's consensual. Okay, now, let me explain what that means. Okay, they're using the sodomite tactic, where basically everything is okay as long as it's consensual. Right? And so legally in our country, they're always trying to lower the age of consent because of the you-know-whats that are out there.
Yeah, don't say it on my show.
I won't say it on the program. And so, because in that world, as long as people are consenting, it is therefore okay. So it's therefore legal, and people under a certain age cannot consent. Well, in America, if you are beating your wife, if you are using spousal corporal punishment on your wife, and she's not turning you into the authorities, which she could, she's technically consenting, because she could get you busted for assault. And it's not like something with kids where you're, you know, like where as a pastor, I'm a mandated reporter and stuff like that if I find out, because they can't consent. But an adult, there are some things they can consent to, or legally. But at the same time, if you do those things and they report you for assault, you will get in trouble for that. So again, it's sad because a lot of husbands, they scare their wives, they manipulate their wives into thinking things are going to be horrible if they turn them in and all that. They use all these tactics. Everybody's seen the programs on these things. But yeah, so technically, you know, if she wasn't turning you into the police, she's consenting. And that's, he's been playing these kind of word games with people. When he said, I never laid a hand on my wife, obviously he means in what he would consider an unbiblical way. No, people aren't asking you if you have ever laid your hand in a way that you think is unbiblical. They want to know if you beat your wife. That's what they want to know. Oh, well, it was consensual. Okay, so are you admitting that you beat your wife? Because people have a problem with that, and rightfully so. And I wish you would turn your sorry carcass in when you do that kind of thing, because it's messed up and it's wicked, and she doesn't need to put up with that. So, again, in that clip, he's talking about your desire being to the wife, and that, or the husband. And that's straight from Genesis 3, and that is, in fact, in reference to him ruling over her. We see the same thing in Genesis chapter 4 after the offering of Cain and Abel, and Cain is upset because God accepts Abel's and he doesn't accept his sacrifice. And it says, if thou doest well, God speaking to Cain, shalt thou not be accepted. And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So yes, that is in reference to them ruling over them. So what Anderson has done in that is he's stating all these facts that are biblical about the husband ruling over the wife. That is what they want. That is what God intends. That is what the way things should be. But then he's acting like if you're against beating your wife, that you're not ruling over. And again, what about all the wives who've not wanted to leave their husband, who've not prayed for their husbands to die, who've had happy marriages without doing those things? Mm-hmm. The reality is you can rule without assaulting your wife. You can rule without beating her. You can rule when God told us to give honor unto them as unto the weaker vessel, like Pastor Shelley was rightfully preaching. That wasn't that didn't mean we're not still ruling. Of course we're still ruling. So what he was doing there was just manipulation to where now if you're against beating a woman, you're a feminist.
Oh, that's what they're spinning.
Yeah, and you're against authority.
Spin. Yeah, that's
because again, feminism is a terrible word in our world. Who wants to be a feminist? I don't want to be a feminist. You know, and when I was a kid, I remember we would often do that to people where we would go and to try to get them to do something, we would call them a name. Like, hey, here, you go do this really stupid thing, and if you don't do it, you're a chicken. Uh-huh. And so what would they often do? They would go do a really stupid thing to prove they're not a chicken. Yeah. So what Anderson's doing, because obviously he's under a lot of criticism for the horrible, messed up practices he has in his home, he is telling everybody, if you don't believe in that, you're a feminist. Well, I'm not a feminist. I'm going to go beat my wife, to prove I'm not a feminist. See, you're being manipulated with like kindergarten tactics in your church. I mean, is it just all single punks in that church? Are there any married dudes in there?
I think there are, with kids, which is sad.
How are married people with kids listening to that nonsense?
And then what he was going on and on and on about Pastor Jones last night, about how he was just ripping into him, sleeping on the couch or going into a different room. That's a lot better than beating your wife or hitting her with an extension cord, corporal consensual discipline.
Yeah, it was
better to do that than hit your wife.
It was very obvious the point that he was trying to make. Is he's just trying to say, the Bible does not give us the authority to go beating our wives and things like that. And obviously, if it's better to go into the corner of a housetop or in the wilderness than with a brawling woman, he's saying that obviously, if when the Bible is showing that alternative, if we don't see beating in there, and if beating is going to help, then just do that. He's just saying go into the wilderness before you're beating your wife. I think the point he was trying to make in there. So that was. Again, Anderson was playing word games in that clip, and he's been doing that in a lot of his preaching, in the honor your father and mother. Again, honoring parents, absolutely important. But does that mean a child cannot turn their parents in for crimes? Mm. Does that not mean an adult child cannot reveal the hypocrisy and the horrible things they've taken? place in their home, especially if they are concerned that it's happening to their younger siblings. I mean, did Athaliah not get overthrown? Did was it Abijah that threw out, or maybe Asa threw out his mother, removed her as being queen? I mean, we see in the Bible where sometimes people had to stand against their parents. When Gideon went and destroyed his father's idols, was he dishonoring his father in those situations? And so again, I don't believe we ought to go cursing our father. I do not believe. I definitely think those guys have crossed some lines in some of the things they've said about their parents, some of the things they've called their parents.
Yeah.
I wish they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And guys, don't do that. Understand, I understand you might have hostile feelings right now, but have you seen the way they are using your sin to distract from theirs?
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that kind of thing. Okay. And so again, what if, and I don't believe this is the case, but what if you found out your dad was a you-know-what and was hurting kids? So, to honor your parents, we can't say anything. We can't go to the law. And understand too, obviously we have child protective services and things like that. And yeah, they are pretty worthless most of the time. And it seems like they get involved in things they shouldn't, and they don't get involved in areas where they should. But again, too, when it comes to this situation too, even with the beating of the wife, again, yeah, if she's not turning you in, I can't turn him in for that. The wife's the one being assaulted. She's the one that has to press charges in that situation. But what is happening now is this is becoming a church matter, a religious matter. Pastor Anderson is not just a pastor of a local church. He's a very influential internet figure, head of the new IFB, that he doesn't know what it is. But that he is very influential in these other churches, has even got some of these guys to have moved away from their teaching where they're calling people all these names if they beat their wives. So now I can't condemn it biblically. And no, what they can't do, it's not that they can't condemn wife beating. They've done that. Yeah. And they instinctively do that. They can't condemn Pastor Anderson. Yeah. That's what they can't do. And it's because they're cowards. Not just because he got them saved. I think it's because they're cowards. That's the reality of it. But all right, want to watch some Mejia clips? No. Let's watch some Mejia clips.
Barely I have not watched his sermon against me. I can barely stomach it.
These are pretty short clips.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of a gently led sister. And you know what? He can nag all he wants and run his mouth, and his sons can run their mouth, and they can say all they want. But you know what? We all know the truth about that. Yep. He's gently led.
So, yeah.
You're gently led.
He's not afraid of gently led sisters. And I love, too, how he mentioned his son.
He said sons. Jason never said a word to him.
Yeah, it has been Jason. But I think this is awesome because they have been criticizing my sons for defending their dad.
And their mom,
And mom, while simultaneously attacking Pastor Anderson's sons for attacking their dad.
It's ridiculous.
And Jonathan Shelley, on one comment, told Tommy he would rather have Solomon as a son than a punk railer like him.
A punk railer like Tommy.
Yeah. Now, my question is, does he still feel that way after watching a video where he called his dad some
pretty
terms
awful
that he
language
can repeat, but I can't?
Yeah.
He's using language that I would never use, in the wilderness, that Shelley would use from the pulpit. Does he still feel that way now? Because again, and now they're totally willing to condemn Anderson's kids because Anderson has.
Anderson,
Anderson, and they're willing to go after any woman who's saying something. And again, they see you as being all over the internet because they see you and you just go in their heads, and it just drives them crazy.
Because I'm saying stuff that's against their agenda.
Wait, where were all these people calling out Jujana when she went after Mejia for his severed head prop at the Red Hot Preaching Conference?
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, she was going after him pretty hard publicly there, and nobody said anything. You know why? Because they're scared of Anderson. I refuse to let a man scare me like that. It just, I would just turn in my man card before I would do anything like that.
No, you're just a gently led husband. What are you talking about? Whatever.
So, all right, let's watch. Let's watch another one of these. That might be the one that we just did. Hang on a second. I got these all out of order. Let's try this one. There we go. No, that's the one I did. All right, here we go.
You think that's pleasing to God? For you to just rebel against your husband? For you to have contempt and disrespect towards your husband? Where did you learn that from? I'll tell you who you learned it from Vashti and that YouTube channel, Gently Led Vashtis.
Oh, so original.
So
Okay, so where have I been rebellious to you?
yeah,
That's what I want to know.
Where have you taught women to rebel against their husbands?
I have never taught that, and okay, babe. Am I rebellious?
No. Now, here's the thing. You don't let those guys tell you what to do.
No, they're not my husbands.
You've rebelled against those
Absolutely,
guys.
I have.
Continued to speak your mind,
And I will
have your
continue
show.
to.
I mean, even when Jonathan Shelley preached his stupid sermon showing that women shouldn't be teaching other women, you continued to teach other women.
And I will.
So you did not submit to him.
Nope.
And so that drives them crazy. And so
Well, that's weird and twisted and demented in and of itself.
And they're used to in the new IFB, because again, people are scared. People are scared of them, getting railed on.
Having whole sermons
listening
repulsive
to the
women
junk
preached
that
against
Pastor
them.
Anderson said about Pastor Jones and stuff
calling
when he was
him
making fun of size of churches.
an illegitimate son.
Yeah.
At the end of his sermon,
that was-
calling another saved man of God an illegitimate son.
Yeah, disgusting. And you know what? And his sending Pastor Jones' sending pastor probably won't stick up for him. He's going to continue hiding. He doesn't want to lose his place in the NIFB board game, and I think that's pathetic and ridiculous. But a lot of people are scared of that kind of thing. But you know what? Do you want people in your church that follow this type of nonsense? Again, you can. I challenge everyone: go find any clue anywhere of any place where my wife has encouraged women to not submit to their husbands. You can't do it. Now, what you will find is my wife being critical of spousal abuse, of wife beaters.
Mm-hmm.
You will find that. And of course, you all now are refusing to condemn it. And you all are telling your people to shut up about it. But my wife is not under your umbrella of authority in any way, shape, or form.
Thank goodness for that.
And that drives you guys crazy. And so these shout outs and mentions, they are hilarious. And let's do this last clip of Mejia, because this is funny. I mean, these people are so predictable.
And you know what? This guy's always surrounded with controversy, and so is his wife. Every single time. And he thinks that just because he called me out on a podcast and saying he's a punk, that's going to stop me or that's going to intimidate me or something like that. Let me explain to you why I'm not a punk. I don't have my wife fighting my battles.
I know you are, but
that's why I'm not a punk. A punk requires his wife to come and do the battling for him. Sorry, Tommy, but that makes you the punk. And you know what? I'm not afraid of Jezebel. I'm not afraid of a gently-led sister. Again, I don't think he's a false prophet. I think he just likes to meddle in other men's matters. And I do think his wife is a loudmouth. And you know what? She's repulsive to me. I don't care if that offends you.
I'm glad I'm repulsive to him.
And you know what? You can clip this.
You are in his head.
Obviously.
Bad. I think you got another shout out last night, or there were some gently led shout outs last night.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
What, and what?
But in his sermon from last night.
Against Pastor Randall, who he doesn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, pretending they're preaching against feminism. Because again, we're all against feminism. So what they're doing is they're setting things up like we're the feminist. And so, obviously we have it all in our heads, and it's right. Feminism's bad. Feminism's bad. Feminism's bad. Of course. So then what they're doing is somehow now they've expanded the definition of feminism to include those who are against wife beating. Even though that was Thompson, that was Shelley, that was Ben the Baptist, that was all these guys before it was revealed Pastor Anderson was doing it. So again, our major sin is we are not continuing the current new IFB narrative.
Nope.
That's meant to basically protect the Pope. Now we're calling out the Pope.
But it's creating a world where abuse can thrive.
Right.
I don't care if he mocks us for standing against abuse and saying that all Christians stand against abuse. Not if you're like making this whole because you have to honor your parents forever, you can no longer call anything out.
Right. No, again, the new IFB, this is my position, okay? And let's people out there, you need to say these things right. When you say things wrong about the new IFB, they love to pounce on that, use that to discredit everything people say about them.
Yeah, they do.
It's like, oh, look, they lied about me here. Everything they say is a lie. Well, no, actually, you can tell 9 lies about somebody and 1 truth, and the one thing is still true. The problem is, yes, people are not going to believe that 1 truth because you told the 9 lies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not tell any lies, okay? I believe the new IFB preachers are against abuse. I believe they are against spousal corporal punishment. I believe that they are against beating your wife and your kids with an electrical cord. But I also believe they are scared to call out Pastor Anderson.
Yeah.
And so the new narrative is now the kids are being paid to lie, which is stupid.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, come on.
Can you say something about that? Because I'm seeing this all over Facebook, and it's like they think it's their smoking gun.
Because it's the Kool-Aid they've been offered. You know,
yes.
Like here's your Kool-Aid I need you to drink for today. It was like, man, you know, this is terrible. You know, what's going, you know, here's a distraction. Okay. Somebody gave money to them probably to help their sister who's on the run. And so let's distract.
But we don't even know that.
Yeah,
it wasn't even written to her.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but either way, I don't think they knew that Brother Salvador was going, when they came out against her dad, was going to give that money.
Well, when did he say that first? Was it in January or February was the first interview with Isaac?
Yeah. Yeah, that was months ago.
This is a very big grand scheme. It's a long con if they thought they were going to get $1,000 in October.
And again,
because of coming out.
Let's just say that's true. Let's just say that that's true. These kids are so wicked that they are doing everything they can to ruin their parents and their dad's ministry for $1,000.
$1,000.
It's like, these are the most evil kids that any pastor has ever produced if they are telling the truth, which also makes me think there's something wrong with his teaching. So again, I don't believe that. I do believe that there are definitely, you know, there are some problems there for sure, but that typically happens. You know, when you treat people terribly, they often do bad things in retaliation that are sin. And so again, I shouldn't be, you know, you know, as a church too, you know, if we are just treating people terrible, there's a good chance that people will respond in a sinful way. And then if we're, you know, like your typical new IFBer, what we will do is whenever we're getting called out for our sinful behavior, we will distract from that and point out their sinful behavior. Look how evil they are. But it's like, okay, but maybe we push them into that. They still shouldn't have done it. I mean, trust in the Lord. And, you know, the Anderson kids, don't sin. You know, be honoring to your parents. And even if in your hearts you don't respect them, you know, just have some rules for yourself. Don't call them some of these names. You know, be very careful on these things, because that is very dangerous for you, and it is clearly wrong, and it should be condemned. But I will say, I would support adults, you know, exposing crimes and exposing hypocrisy in the home of a preacher who is very influential, clearly leading people in a bad way when it comes to the family. And so, yeah, and speaking of that we definitely do need to get to this Pastor Shelley clip, because this is pretty ridiculous. Some of the stuff here. I got to change this. If you want to go and say something while I get this ready, you can.
I don't know. I mean, did you get most of the clips out of me?
Yeah, that was all I got together of his, just because I don't know. So most of it was.
We've been accused of watching all of their sermons, but I never even know anything's going on until someone messages me and they're like, "Dude, Cassandra, they're talking about you again."
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, too, the clip, you know, her promo video too, I made that.
Yes.
That was my idea.
That's his idea.
That was my handiwork. Okay. Yeah. She didn't do that. I did it because I thought it would be hilarious.
And obviously that hit a nerve too, because
big time.
And I will say too, I don't delete comments unless they're full of profanity. So there's almost 200 comments on there. You go through, you read, you be a judge, and you see what most people think about this channel and the fact that it has helped women. And that's why I'm going to continue doing it. And I think there needs to be a counter we need to have counter teaching that's actually biblical, unlike what's going on right now, because I'm telling you, you have to look at the fruit of things. If you want to raise children who are in their adults that are doing this, by all means, take his advice. And he's still giving it in every sermon. He's still saying, I know the best way. I know how to do it.
Like,
listen to me.
Yeah. How self-unaware are you?
Yeah.
He was still giving parenting tips. And like in his sermon last night, I was like, what?
I'm still gonna beat my teenagers.
Yeah, it would be like getting last place at the county fair in your pumpkin pie, and then trying to, give people advice on baking a pie.
That's a fun analogy.
It's just like, really, do you expect anyone to listen to what you're saying right now? Because we all ate your pie and we all threw up. So.
But yeah, so go look at those comments. I'm not deleting them. I'm leaving them up just because I don't want to create a false narrative or an echo chamber. I don't want that.
Yeah,
so,
and crazies, go ahead and leave yours on there too, because we find them entertaining.
Yeah.
And then it shows people too, hey, all the stuff we're saying about you guys is true.
Yeah.
So all right, let's watch some of this clip of Cassandra McMurtry is a busybody and a slanderer.
Oh my
You know what? Let's talk about a few of those for a moment, okay? Look at verse number 8. Likewise must the deacons be grave. So according to the Bible, deacons have to have similar characteristics of the pastor. Why? The pastor should obviously encompass all the same qualifications of the deacons. Verse number 11. Even so must their wives be grave, not slanderers. Now here's the thing. Slanderer is an objective term. It's not a subjective term. Slandering is lying about people, making false accusation. Another word for it would be called railing. So according to the...
Okay. I want everybody to watch very closely to what he does here.
Where have I slandered anyone?
Exactly. Yeah. What's the slandering? Now, he's going to give the example of the slander. Okay. Now, think objectively. Don't be gaslit by the king of the gaslighters.
He is. Oh, my word.
Don't be manipulated by the second best manipulator out there. Okay. So watch what he does right here. This is fascinating.
Bible, if your wife is a railer, you know what? You're not qualified. Now, it's funny to me how people who live in glass houses love to throw stones. And they want to call out Pastor Anderson and say he should step down when their wife is a literal slanderer. Who is that? How about Pastor Tommy McMurtry and his wife Cassandra McMurtry, who is a constant slanderer online? Now, here's a couple quotes from her.
All right, so constant slander online. So with this constant slandering, he should have the goods on you right now, and he's getting ready to give some of the information. So check this out, and then watch what he does.
Talking about the new IFB, the entire new IFB, teaching on the home is harmful to families and is without love or balance.
Amen.
So every single teaching of the new IFB is harmful to all families and is without love or balance.
I said on the home.
Yeah. And did you catch that?
Yes.
So every single teaching of the new IFB. So notice how he can't just read what you said.
No.
He's got to read a line and then interpret it for everyone.
I said on the home.
Yeah.
I specifically remember when I wrote that too.
They're teaching on the home. And she is making an overall objective criticism of new IFB teaching on the home, that it is bad. But every single teaching. Oh, so we believe you ought to spank your kids. She think that's terrible. He doesn't go that far, but that's the kind of thing. So now, no, in a very specific area, the teaching on the home, it's very unbalanced. Meaning, there are many things too, and everybody knows this, okay, that are correct. Yeah, you should spank your kids. Yeah, husbands should rule over the wives, of course. But again, they always are going to these crazy extremes. They're always making bad application of these, and it's producing very bad results. And we get lots of stories. We get lots of testimony. We have many people that have reached out to us. She has a lot of women that reach out to her about different things that they're going through. And typically, when you find out about some of the nonsense going on, they don't attribute it to new IFB teaching. But we've heard enough of it that it's like, I know where her husband got that stuff. I know where they're getting this from. I know why they think it's okay to do that kind of junk to their wife.
Yep.
Because that's what they're hearing preached. And so, again,
lest we forget, Jonathan Shelley also said in the conversation with John, he has men that come to him, and he tried to downplay this
Yeah.
and tried to make it like, oh, no, I just mean generally like out there. No, he has men that come to him all the time who beat the, bad word, expletive, who beat the expletive out of their wives. Jonathan Shelley, has men that come to him all the time.
And I believed him when I heard that.
I absolutely believe him.
I believe that. And again, and I'm not surprised. Now, I don't deal with that.
No.
Okay. Now, but I am not surprised that he does.
Okay, no, I will say.
Not from church members.
I have been reached out though.
Yeah.
From women where that is happening, and I will give them my advice, which is probably most likely, I'm going to say probably because I don't know for sure. I don't want to be accused of slander. Different than what Jonathan Shelley tells his men that come to him for counseling.
Yeah, probably. Because again, in his world, abusing the kids is like breaking bones and things like that.
Permanently damaging them.
Permanently damaging them. It's like,
or breaking bones.
Psycho. What in the world?
Yeah.
It's like no. If they come to me and tell me they're abusing their kids, you know what I'm going to advise those women to do? Go to the police.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you might want to warn them about listening to me. All right, here we go.
Don't you call that slander? She said this: about 4 years ago, we realized that the new IFB was completely unbalanced in every way.
Yeah.
They are.
Now, again, how is this slander? And here's the thing, too. Even what you're saying there, again, this is your perception of things.
It's my opinion.
This is your judgment of them as a group. And I agree with this judgment. And that's the thing. In Shelley's world, anything that where you disagree with him is therefore a lie and therefore railing. That's why nobody talks about railing and throwing people out for railing more than him. A disagreement is railing in Shelley's world. You are giving your opinion and perception of new IFB teaching on the home and new IFB teaching in general, that it is very unbalanced. And so that's your, where is that slander? Again, are you saying every single person abuses their wife and kicks them down the stairs? And that Jonathan Shelley, you saw him,
I've never said anything about him or what he does in his home.
The way he married his wife, he hit her over the head with a club and drug her by her hair to his cave. That would be slander if you're saying something like that. But no, this is you
give me my opinion.
Why too you didn't want their trash being shared on your Facebook page.
Exactly.
So. But again, Shelley, because we're calling out Anderson for something that legitimately shows his disqualification, he's trying to disqualify those speaking against him.
I said at the beginning of this, I told you, I said, babe, he better never say another pastor is disqualified again. And especially when he told his church, he felt he needed to step down, and then the next day decides he doesn't believe that way anymore. Yes, I said, he better never. And then literally within a few days, he's trying to disqualify you.
Yeah, distraction, deflection. That's what this is. All right, let's keep watching.
And then she gives us examples: the home, discipline, language, way of living, lack of holiness. So we separate ourselves.
Yep.
Was it that you separated yourselves 4 years ago, or was it that everyone's calling out for being a lying gossip?
I always tell people when they ask, did you leave or did you get kicked out? I think it was pretty mutual.
It was, but we did decide to leave.
Yeah,
he tries to make it like you
I'll
got
give it
kicked
to
out.
him. If people want to say, if they want to say they kicked me out, okay, fine. I don't really know for sure, but
it was kind of mutual.
Yeah, it was mutual. If we got kicked out, we agreed for them to kick us out or maybe they kicked us out as we were leaving simultaneously. So either way, it's fine with me.
Oh, we separated ourselves. It's funny when you kick people out and they're like, I left. She said that we are encouraging or believe that we should be beating our wives with electrical cords.
Yep.
I don't know anybody that does that.
Oh, brother.
Absolutely.
Yes,
people have been defending it like maniacs all over Facebook and social media.
Oh, my word.
And again, you don't know anybody that does that. Why did you tell John that what Pastor Anderson said to you did not contradict what they were saying?
He also put it in a statement.
Did you flip-flop even on what you heard from Pastor Anderson? Obviously, you flip-flopped on your judgment of what he should do in that situation, but even on what you heard from his mouth, you even flip-flopped on that. Interesting.
Anderson and his wife, because they explicitly said it's never happened, folks. Here's another one. They said,
wait, when is he explicitly here? He's not explicitly said, I have not beat my wife with the extension cord. He's saying my kids lie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you ever beat your wife? Because they've said a lot of stuff. Did they lie about everything? Did they, lie when they said sometimes there were good times with you guys? I mean, just like which.
But Shelley
which
put
things?
in his statement too that Pastor Anderson admitted to him that he used extension cords, but only on his teens. So are we forgetting about that public statement now?
Yeah. So again, I don't know. He probably flip flopped on that. So it's very convenient when you're able to just keep changing your mind about what you say and what you believe.
That like me and some of our friends, we've now eliminated everybody from us, and we're going to live in a tiny echo chamber of insanity.
Yep.
But this is funny to me, because I'm like, okay, let's take you and all your pals. Let's take Pastor McMurtry, Joe Major, Michael Johnson. Let's take all these people, and let's add all their church up together and see if they even are half the church of Faithful Word Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Oh, Anderson playbook time.
Yes, this is fascinating because here's something too that everybody needs to understand from the new IFB world. Again, I am from the old IFB world. Okay, in the old IFB, in the new IFB world, everything is centered around YouTube.
Yes.
Okay? And it's all about the subscribers, the following, new IFB, all that kind of stuff. Okay, in the world that I'm from, it's not about YouTube. Okay, I have so many preacher friends. If you saw the amount of pastors I have in my contacts that I talk to, that I'm friends with, that I communicate with, I go to many different meetings. I was just at a meeting recently that had well over 1,000 people at the meeting. And I mean, probably over 100 preachers that were at that meeting that I know. I don't even know how many of them I know personally, know well, that I am friends with. And I mean, these are independent, fundamental, King James only, soul-winning Baptist churches, but they don't have YouTube presences,
right?
Most of them. They don't have social media presence. In fact, the pastor of this large church is almost non-existent on social media, but he pastors a very large church that is tearing it up on the soul winning. When we're in other towns, we often run into their soul winners. We run into their soul winners all the time because they're all over the place, preaching the same gospel, getting people saved, tearing it up. And these people, they have way more people in their church than any new IFB church.
Probably all the new IFBs left put together.
Probably. Oh, I would say definitely. And I mean, I go to Pastors Fellowship, I preach at other things, but these things are not on YouTube. And again, on a lot of these preachers too, they don't agree with me on a lot of my stances, and I am very public online. And so a lot of preachers, they're not interested in getting involved in the online battles and drama and things. And so I don't go sharing, and posting everything that I go to everywhere that I'm at. Now, if I thought they wanted me promoting them, I would, the people that I hang out with. But a lot of times they're just not interested in that. And so, again, when they think of my world, they're thinking about people on YouTube, people I have on my podcast. Listen, I have more churches and pastors that I fellowship with in Illinois than are even in the new IFB. And let me tell you something about the trash these guys are preaching. I could call up any one of dozens of the preachers that I have in my phone and ask them their thoughts on these things, and they'll think you, and they already think you guys are crazy. They will completely disagree with you. You guys are alone on an island with your whacked out beliefs on marriage and raising children. The amount of success stories that I can tell you about and preachers that I know and that I could point to who, I mean, have gotten the job done and they've done it well and raised up good people. I know so many good examples. But again, these guys, all they know is new IFB. If you listen to their preaching, the only illustrations they ever give of situations, it's new IFB stuff. It's stuff they observed on YouTube or stuff they heard about from other new IFB churches. Most Baptist preachers have fellowships within their own states. And I'm pretty close to Iowa. There's some that I go to over in Iowa. And he's acting, you're like, nobody knows who I am. I promise a lot more preachers, a lot more pastors know who I am than know who Jonathan Shelley is.
That doesn't even bother me. He can
and I don't
think
even, I don't even care about that.
But it's just the whole playbook thing. Now we're going to criticize size of churches. When did the new IFB ever accept that? They've always said it doesn't matter the size of your church because most of the new IFB churches are small.
Yeah.
The average Baptist church is 70 members. So.
Yeah. And our church is very average. And that, and we're fine with that and we're happy with that. But again, so these guys have a very limited
Oh, worldview.
Yeah, worldview. It's very,
Baptist
very
worldview.
small. Because again, how many meetings and conferences do you think these guys are going to?
They're red hot.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they're
I'm sure there might be a
fire-breathing.
few others that they visit.
Maybe.
But
we're
again,
going to one probably every few weeks.
Because here's the thing too, I have been in the Baptist world for almost 44 years now, and you know, I have tons of preachers in my family. I know the Baptist world.
Yeah.
I have way more experience in this stuff than these guys do. I know what's being taught. I know it works. Again, what drew me to these guys, it was more the eschatology and stuff, because most of the IFBs got that wrong. These guys are a lot better on that. But at the end of the day, that stuff, while I am also known for a lot of that too, the new IFB teaching on prophecy, that is not what affects my everyday life. That is not my focus on doctrine. Okay? And the doctrine that I am mostly focused on is doctrine that the Bible talks about, on behavior, things that become sound doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
All about behavior, and the way I behave, the way I conduct myself, the way I run my church, the way I am as a father, and the way I am as a husband is as old IFB as all get out. And I am not new IFB.
No.
When it comes to family, when it comes to living life, I am old IFB. Unfortunately, I'm kind of identified with the new IFB when it comes to things like eschatology. And a few other things.
The one common thing.
Yeah. and understand, too, in my defense, back when I got involved with the new IFB and Pastor Anderson, Jonathan Shelley wasn't a pastor yet.
Nope.
Bruce Mejia wasn't a pastor yet.
They weren't
Aaron
even
Thompson
around.
wasn't a pastor yet. I wish those guys, I would have known about them before I got involved with that circus. Because, you know, I've always enjoyed some of Anderson's crazy. You know,
We like a little
I
crazy.
like crazy. That's why I used to watch Phil Kidd.
Yeah.
You know, Phil Kidd, I went to him for entertainment, not for doctrine. Anderson, I went for him for the doctrine and entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, too, it's just like these copycats are repulsive. It's awful. But let's go and watch some more of this.
That's either half of the church or second. And then we live in a tiny echo chamber of insanity.
You do.
That's interesting. What kind of, I mean, you must be in a really tiny echo chamber then. Oh yeah, also, Pastor Virtue said this, that we're all Kool-Aid drinkers.
Yeah.
And that we also encourage beating wives with electrical cords. But here's the thing about that. I actually had a physical conversation with Tommy Marcher over the phone. And I said, it's not fair to call my entire church Kool-Aid drinkers. You can think whatever you want about me, but the people in my church are God-fearing people that love the Lord, and they would never do something so horrendous as that. I said, you're accusing South America of drinking poison.
Stop it there for a second. Yeah. He's just trying to turn his church against you right now, too.
Well, that's fine, because I don't want people from his church. Again, listen, anybody who was a part of that church after the F word nonsense, y'all are freaks and weirdos.
And he even addresses that.
Yeah,
he's like, I already said a bad word.
Yeah,
what else do I need to do?
I don't want you. It's just like anybody that was so emasculated that they sat through that and put up with that nonsense, you're not going to fit in our church.
No.
Okay? I don't want you. Okay? So just, I don't want people from Steadfast. Okay? Just don't visit us. Don't move up here. It's just, I don't trust you. Okay? But we did have the conversation, and he brought up that he didn't like me calling his church members Kool-Aid drinkers. Here's how the conversation went. He's not as specific as he should have been on this. Because I'm like, well, it seems like a really good, you know, representation of your people, because the fact that you're just able to go along with this kind of stuff, it reminds me of people who are willing to drink poison Kool-Aid for their leader. And I was like, what do you think a Kool-Aid drinker is? And he said, I think it's somebody that moves to Guyana and literally drinks poison Kool-Aid and all that.
Come on.
So he feels that term should only be used for the Jim Jones cult.
Duh.
Okay? So obviously me and him have different definitions of Kool-Aid drinkers. I do not believe the people in his church have moved to Guyana and drank poison Kool-Aid. Now, I think some of them might.
Interestingly enough, have you ever listened to Death Tapes?
Yes.
I was just listening again to that today, and some of the stuff Jim Jones does in there.
Go watch some of the Jim Jones stuff.
It's crazy how similar.
It'll freak you out if you're in the new IFB.
Yeah.
And so, again, yeah, it's not the exact same thing. It's just the behavior is so bizarre. The fact that people are defending Anderson and all this is so weird and bizarre. They remind me of the type of people who would move to Guyana
Tommy,
and drink poison Kool-Aid.
Tommy, there's literally women arguing over if they would be submissive enough to let their husbands beat them.
Yeah.
In groups, there are women arguing over. Come on,
Yeah,
ladies.
yeah, so
come on.
I think, yeah, obviously, I do not think the people of Steadfast are Kool-Aid drinkers according to Shelley's definition of it. But according to my definition of it, just people who follow somebody to a freakishly weird level,
Yeah.
to where they will do things harmful to themselves spiritually, harmful things in their marriage, like, you know, the spousal corporal discipline, whatever. You know, I think calling you a Kool-Aid drinker is fitting. And so, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Charles Landreth, for posting this and made it so easy for us to find it.
Yes, it was great blessings. All right, we'll switch forward.
He said, yes, I am. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah, I said, yes, I am, according to my definition.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a misrepresentation there.
Now, here's the thing. I took down that first video I made, and people didn't know this, but one of the reasons I wanted to take it down is because I wanted to take back every nice thing I've ever said about Pastor McMurtry and his wife.
It was fake anyways.
And that was such a blessing. So, yeah, so Shelley, he contacted me after I had done that post, and I had made some statements about some people in this church being Kool-Aid drinkers. Okay? Definitely said that. And he gave me a list of things he was going to attack me for. So I just called him up because I'm like, hey, listen, I said, if you want to attack me, that's fine. But just understand, this is going to be perceived as you carrying water, you know, for Anderson.
Because at the
to
time,
go
you
after
were
the one guy. And at the
one.
time, I was
Yeah.
the only one
Yeah.
who had said anything against Pastor Anderson. And I was like, it's not going to help you out. You're going to look really bad if you do that. And so we talked for a long time, and he calmed way down, and the conversation got pretty nice. You know, he was tired of seeing me attack him. And I told him, I said, the reason I brought you up is because I was being accused of extortion, which is a charge you made up.
And
which
he made
is
it up.
completely false. And he
Yes.
even admitted on his one video where he said nice stuff about me that was probably wasn't fair. I don't know.
I
how I'd worded
exaggerated
exactly.
it,
Yeah,
you know, because I'm dramatic.
Yeah, or it was a
Shelley was saying
misperception,
he
misunderstood.
dramatized it. Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, if you would take that stuff back, then I probably wouldn't have to listen to these weirdos accuse me of that, and that would help a lot. But I said, when somebody accuses me of something so stupid and so foolish and something so far from the truth like extortion, I know that originated from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to take that back. You need to get that right. And so he did. And while I appreciated that, because I'm not interested in attacking the guy all the time, that video was horrible. Because first off, he's making the Anderson kids out to be liars. He's talking about his mom beating his brother with a 2x4 or something like that.
Like that justifies it.
It was a really weird video, and he's defending Anderson in it, and it put me in a bad position because it's like, I don't believe he's sincere about this.
No.
But he basically apologized and said nice things. And so when somebody apologizes, you know, you kind of need to forgive him. You kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't believe him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe for 2 seconds that it was sincere and that it was legit. So it put me in a really bad position because of the fact that Shelley is somebody that I never want to be identified with, that I don't want to be seen as aligned with in any way, shape, or form. And so it really bothered me that there was this video out there of him saying nice things.
Yeah.
I feel way better about his rail-a-thon than I do about his video where he was trying to make amends. Because at the end of the day, too, this is the guy who dropped the F word from the pulpit. And he still hasn't apologized for it in a sincere way.
No.
And he thinks that cussing still isn't a thing. You know, I don't want to be friends with somebody like that. I don't want to be seen as even friendly towards somebody like that. So it put me in a really bad position, but I didn't go after him anymore.
Well, I think that's why he did it. He didn't want you going after him.
And I think so too. But I was like, I guess I can't go after him in this situation. And so, you know, later when he got upset again and he sent me a bunch of stuff saying he was going to go after me again, no more grace for railers. I knew that was coming. I was like, all right, well, I guess I can include him on the promo.
But where
video.
have we railed? He still has not. He has not.
Because we disagree.
That's
You know,
not railing.
How many of you steadfast people have been thrown out for railing, and in reality, you disagreed with Shelley? And so because you disagreed, that was a lie. Lying's railing. No company with railers. Yeah. So yeah, everybody's a railer in Shelley's world.
And a slanderer now.
The Kelly and Hannah video was not an exaggeration. All right, here we go.
Whoops.
So I trust this.
Because you know what? No more grace for railers. And you know what? I'm sad that I ever extended grace in an olive branch. But you know what? He contacted me and he called me a few years ago complaining about how I had proven that he was like extorting Pastor Thompson and lying and doing all this weird stuff. And I guess his kid was interested in dating some other kid, and he was like, this is causing me problems. And I thought, you know what? That's not fair to the kids. Why don't I just take this down? Why don't I just give him grace? I'm sure he's getting people saved and whatever. So I just decided to take it all down and just I preached a whole sermon about this when we were Hotel Church, saying, let's just give this guy grace and let's just kind of move on. And I did. I don't remember after that sermon ever preaching about him, bringing him up, talking about him, or caring about him. He basically doesn't exist. But you know what he does? He goes and lives in his really tiny echo chamber and gets no attention ever. And then he says, you know what? I'm tired of getting no attention, so I'm just going to go rail on and attack the new IFB to get some more attention again. And basically that's his modus operandi, is to just go out there, him and his wife, and just slander and rail and attack new IFB churches because he knows he'll usually provoke us into responding. And you know what? Here's your response. And I'm sure I'll make it on all your videos. Hi. Okay? I'm sure I'll make it on your wife's videos. You know, this channel called Gently Led Sisters, which
I love when him and Mejia do the thing because they always have to acknowledge I'm going to do something because they know I'm going to use it as a promo. And so it's like a control tactic.
It is.
You know, that way it doesn't look like I'm doing something they wouldn't want me to do. And that's why I put it like 3 times on that promo of me. Go and clip this and put it on your podcast. You know, just because
really obsessed with that.
They really don't want me doing that. And so they have to throw that in there. And I find that hilarious. And so, yeah, those things always are going to make it into the promo when they do that. It's just like they're trying to show we still have some control.
Can we touch on this whole envy thing too? It's been
what
are we envious of? Can someone please explain to us what we're envious of?
You know what? Here's what we're envious of.
YouTube subscribers.
250 YouTube subscribers.
Not really.
And part of this new IFB game, one of the things to be a pastor, you got to collect the most YouTube subscribers.
The whole goal is to become a pastor.
It's all about a following. It's all, and so it's all about the following, and that's why all these people are like, nobody, we wouldn't even know who these people were if it wasn't for Pastor Anderson. It's like, yeah, it means we wouldn't have gotten a few weirdos subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's important to us. Again, our church was around for. I do the social media stuff for fun.
Yeah.
That is not the focal point of my ministry. That is not a vast majority of the work that I do in the ministry is not that. I do this stuff for fun because I enjoy it. What is our main focus? But it's our local church. And what I do in the local church, I mean, the work I do there is very satisfying. I did it for years before I was even on YouTube or social media. I've continued doing that. Social media, YouTube, that's more something I do in my spare time for fun. And I enjoy it, and a lot of people are blessed by it. But it's not the focal point of my ministry. If my YouTube channel gets torched, oh well, I really don't care. If a few weirdos quit following and unsubscribe, I don't really care because I'm not playing this game in real life. I play it for fun when people are over, just so we can get some good laughs. And so envy. What we're envious of is Pastor Anderson has the most subscribers. That's what it is. He's got the bigger following. That's what it's all about. But he also has kids who hate him.
Why would we be envious of that?
Yeah, it's like he has a wife that he needs to beat.
Why would I be envious of that?
Subjection. Who wants that? But again, in new IFB land, where it's all about the YouTube subscribers and things,
ridiculous.
That stuff's important. I'm not from that world. I'm old IFB. I'm old IFB with some new IFB eschatology, and so these things don't move me. These things do not influence me. I just find this stuff enjoyable, entertaining, therapeutic, whatever. And so it is. We got 30 more seconds of this. Let's listen to the last 30 seconds.
She uploads videos of me preaching and other pastors preaching as the promo to her channel. And then she says, my channel's dedicated to housewives. And I'm thinking like, I didn't know I was so good at reaching housewives for your channel. It's like, I'm not a hater, I'm not an attack channel, but I'm going to upload videos of pastors attacking me on my channel as a promo to my channel. Why? Because she's a busybody and a tattler.
What?
I'm not an attack channel. Well, again,
I've never attacked them on this channel.
Where was that promo attacking them? It was all clips.
Oh no, supposedly my comment saying they'll live in an echo chamber.
Oh, I put that on there too.
Oh no. I meant the comments he read off from Facebook.
Oh, I see.
That's me attacking them,
I did put on the video, and I did all this about them living in her head, or you living in their head, and all that. But it was but that was all me. And that was for fun, because we were that video illustrates the impact that your channel is having. That these guys are talking about it like crazy right now. And again, and then trying to make you the face of feminism right now. They can't show anywhere where you're teaching husbands or wives to usurp their husband's authority.
Because I never
They
have.
can't find any evidence of examples of you railing.
Because I haven't.
Okay? Now, they have examples of you expressing opinions and thoughts about their preaching that Shelley disagrees with. That's slander in his world. Because in his church, he can throw people out for whatever he wants.
And he also called me a busybody and tattler. Yeah, Candace asked, a tattler? How am I a tattler?
Yeah, I mean, how did you tattle on them with their preaching?
It makes no sense.
I don't know. But yeah, so that's all the clips we have. But I think we should talk about this NIFB board game. So those of you wondering about this NIFB board game, and if the creator, again, wants to come forward and tell everybody about it, that is fine. Here, let me switch to full screen here so I can show this. So here's the board for the game. I'll explain it to you the way the game works. But yeah, you got the NIFB board game.
It's upside down.
But notice here you have the reprobate circle, and it's got the triggered women on there. You've got the YouTube subscriber thing. We got Massa, Red Hot Preaching Conference, more hate as you go around the board. And so basically the way the game works, I forgot all the rules exactly. It's been a while since I played this. But you're supposed to get, in order to become qualified as a pastor, you're supposed to get like 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We have new IFB loyalty tokens that you can get. You also need to attend the Red Hot Preaching Conference and Massa. And if you do all of those things, the first one to meet all those requirements, they are the next pastor in the new IFB, and they won the board game. I do believe you won one time, didn't you? Didn't you become a pastor in the new IFB on the board game one time?
Probably. I should probably get, yeah.
But yeah, and so as
that in front of my name.
Where's the repro die? Oh, here you go. So here we have, I think it's called the repro die. I know you're not gonna be able to see it.
Is your sound on? Sarah said she didn't have your sound, but
yeah.
Is it on? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's coming. So yeah, you have the repro die in here. I'm gonna put this in the camera. I got to show it to you on the camera. Hang on a second. So, no, it's not focusing right. Never mind, that's not going to work. But basically, you know, there's 6 sides on a dice, and it's got 4 Pastor Andersons on there and 2 of the triggered women. And so if you end up in the reprobate circle, you can get reprobated pretty easy in this game, kind of like in the new IFB. And then you have to, when it comes to your turn, you have to roll the repro die. And if it lands on Pastor Anderson, he leaves you in the reprobate circle, where if you land on one of the triggered women, because you triggered a liberal, you get removed from the reprobate circle. Now, that's not completely accurate, because in new IFB world, once you get reprobated, you're reprobated forever.
Yes.
Unless they need to update this game now that I have the power of unreprobation that I'm able to give, according to Pastor Thompson. But yeah, so as you go around the board too, if you land on different squares, you'll draw some of these cards. And so and sometimes it gives you good things, sometimes it gives you bad things. For example, this is literally one of the things. Your wife asked an older lady at church a question instead of you. Action taken, -1 reward token. so you lose one of your new IFB loyalty tokens as a result of that. Here's one, a picture of you and Pastor Boyle resurface from the Massa conference that one year. -1 reward token. And then, not everybody's going to get this one. You're invited to Thompson's for Black Angus again. Where are they getting the money for this? +1 reward token. And then, you didn't say sodomite or reprobate in your most recent sermon, -1 reward token. So, do you have some?
I have 2.
All right, go ahead and do some of yours.
Okay, so this one is very relevant to what happened last week, especially. Pastor Shelley yells at you for 1 hour because you liked a McMurtry post. -1 reward token. There's that one. And then you use the term reprobated, coined by McMurtry, on a regular basis.
That's true.
+1 reward token. So, yeah, we have had people over that, obviously, if you've never been a part of this, you would have no idea what this stuff
if you're
even
not
means.
familiar with new IFB stuff, you're like, this game sounds completely stupid. But if you've been following the new IFB for any length of time, you're like, this is awesome. Where can I get it?
Yeah, Ronnie asked, was the game created by new IFB or haters?
Former new IFBer.
Former new IFBer. Yeah, created it. And no, it's not Paul Wittenberger, for those of you wondering. It was not him. It was someone who shall remain anonymous unless he wants to be named.
I won't reveal whose brilliance came up with
it. Was brilliant. The stuff in it is brilliant.
When this was sent to us, I mean, we were shocked at just how professional the game was. And we were also, I mean, we have enjoyed it greatly. And we have played it with many people who at one time were a part of the new IFB. And the amount of laughs that come from this game is great. But again, if you've never been a part of it, you're not going to get it. And the only people that aren't going to like this game are people who've never been involved in new IFB and the new IFB Kool-Aid drinkers. They will be greatly offended through the whole thing.
Someone said, Benjamin said, he said, Brother Tommy, I don't think you'll ever have a final word on the new IFB. Can you kind of mention why? Like, I was very reticent to even have this on my channel because I've tried to keep NIFB stuff off this channel, but it's come to a frenzy. Like, there's a feeding frenzy right now with me and even going against my kids.
I said on that one stream, I hope, but I hope. But unfortunately,
they keep going.
The nonsense has been off the charts. And let me just say this right now. I ain't done. I'm far from done.
Uh-oh.
So I'll just let y'all worry about that.
But yeah, I think there was a bunch of the sermons that we didn't even touch on, a bunch of the parts, but I haven't listened to it. I don't think I will, because at the end of the day,
I've heard some clips from the Rail-a-thon. It was like 2 hours.
2 hours of Rail-a-thon.
Who wants to listen to all that?
Yeah, it was 2 hours of Rail-a-thon, completely unhinged. And this is why, was it Lana the other day? She's 10, and she was listening to we were listening to the promo. My husband sent it to me, and he's like, do you want me to put this on your channel? That's like, I guess. And she said, they're preaching against you from the pulpit. She's like, why doesn't Dad preach against them from the pulpit then? And I thought that was very observant of her. And can you answer that? Why won't you use your pulpit to really name them, go after them?
Yeah, because first off, I've definitely done it before. But at the same time, too, it's like I really want my preaching to be timeless, especially if I'm preaching through a book in the Bible. I got inspired a few years back. I remember one of the most helpful sermons I ever heard from Pastor Anderson was his sermon on Exodus 40. I would encourage people to go listen to Exodus 40. And he preached that sermon, I believe it was the first service that they had where it was live stream only during the lockdown. And of course, he was getting a lot of criticism for that. And the entire sermon was supporting his position on the lockdown. And I'm like, I thought you were preaching on Exodus 40. And I realized these new IFB guys, man, no matter what chapter they're preaching through, it's always about whatever the current event is. And then that one clip from Thompson where he's like, you know, calling you out for teaching people stuff. That was like that was like 1 Corinthians something.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with it.
And here's the funny thing too. The sermon that he just preached recently against me, it was another Corinthians sermon.
Yeah.
It's like these guys' sermons are always magic when they're preaching through the Bible, are always magically about whatever the current events are.
Right.
And I came to realize, I'm like, you know, I've definitely done that before too. And I remember when I heard Pastor Anderson do that, I was like, I don't ever want to do that. If I'm preaching through a chapter in the Bible, I'm doing a Bible study on a chapter in the Bible, I don't want somebody 5 years from now, hey, I'd like to learn, I'm struggling with something on Exodus 40. I'm going to go, oh, here's a sermon on Exodus 40, and then hear something supporting the stupid lockdown.
Yeah.
That's the last thing. And I was like, you know what? I need to make sure if I'm preaching on a subject, if I'm preaching on especially a chapter in the Bible, that I make it about that chapter in the Bible, not just about current events. And so, you know, the messages I preached yesterday for sure had things that, you know, clearly applied and were even pointed at the new IFB and some of this nonsense that's going on, for sure. But I also preach that message in a way where 5 years from now, somebody will be able to listen to that message and learn from the principles in there and not just learn about current events. And I think that's important, you know, and something I want to do with my teaching. if I want to talk about current events, and sometimes I do, if I want to settle a score, and sometimes I do, I can use my podcast for that.
Right.
I would rather use my podcast for that rather than the pulpit for that. I don't want to do a 2-hour rail-a-thon when people come to hear a sermon.
Right.
I mean, what if I had a visitor come and they listen to me for 2 hours rail and just settle scores and carry water for people in another church and just righting all the wrongs against me? That's just not good. And so everybody go back and find that Exodus 40 sermon of Pastor Anderson and see if you even really learn anything about Exodus 40.
Yeah.
What I learned then is this guy is able to take the Bible and make it about whatever he needs. And I used to make fun of the camp meeting crowd for that. And I know how to do that. I do it sometimes just making fun. I've always joked about how I can take any verse in the Bible, I can make it about a pre-trib rapture. If I go into my camp meeting character, I can do it. And the new IFB, they can be preaching on literally any passage in the Bible, and they can make it about whatever the current event is. They can be preaching on Psalms 23, and they can make it about gently led sisters and Jezebels and stuff. I mean, if that's what they need to preach that day. And it's like, hey, if you want to preach against gently led sisters and Jezebels, just preach against them. But don't make Psalms 23 about that.
And how am I a Jezebel? Because what was Jezebel known for teaching about?
Yeah,
or
teaching.
The Revelation
Yeah,
one.
and seducing them to commit fornication.
Yeah.
And I think Vada idols, if I remember correctly.
Have I ever promoted that or taught that as on this channel? Ever?
No, never. I'd shut it down if she did.
Yeah.
If she was teaching people to commit fornication and serve idols and things like that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So again, just and the people in our church aren't interested in that. I mean, some probably would enjoy it, but they know that's them being carnal. And a lot of people in our church, they don't even know who these people are.
I want to mention too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was talking to Mrs. Epley, just a godly lady. She's an older godly lady at this
a ladies' conference. It wasn't on YouTube.
Yeah, it was at a women's retreat.
Because we have a bigger world than you think.
Yes, it was at a women's retreat this past weekend. And obviously in the all branches of IFB right now, all branches of pretty much Protestants, every branch is noticing this drama going on right now. Like, people are writing articles about it. It's a big current event. So she, if you are, and then my other pastor's wife friend that was there, if you're on Facebook at all, you've noticed I've been vocal about it. I've been posting about it. And Mrs. Epley told me that 40 years ago, they were at a church in Kentucky, and the pastor was basically telling them that he was allowed to spank his wife. She said 40 years ago that preachers were arguing about this.
Well, that proves the new IFB is not crazy.
So 40 years ago. So this is not, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So this is not some new thing. But I do believe it needs to be, which they would probably say, well, that's good. Because remember, in the podcast, which I only saw a tiny snippet and I got off, I could not bear to listen to it. But in the podcast, they showed examples from movies where men were spanking their women. And then they were, I don't know if they were trying to show that it's been around a long time.
That was always seen as comedy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that was always comedy. It wasn't real life. But I do need to respond to Matthew Martin. I've been meaning, he keeps asking for the Bozo show footage.
Yes.
I showed that once on a live stream with Brother Paul
did.
Wittenberger when we were raising money for one of his projects.
Uh-huh.
But I think I got rid of it after that. If you put Bozo show stuff up on YouTube, you'll get a copyright strike real easy. And so I can't leave Bozo show footage up. So I did have it up temporarily, I believe. I don't think it's, I think I had to take it off or clip that part out.
Maybe you should just like download it as a video on your phone and send it to him.
Yeah.
Contact him and he'll send it to you. So
I would show it now at the end of this thing, but I don't have it ready to queue up or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you should have been there for whatever that was a while back where we were raising money. But I did show it once.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't leave it up because I would get dinged for it.
But can you just to end, okay? Because that was another argument that I've been seeing is how people in the 1940s spanked their wives, or people in the 1900s spanked their wives, and so thus it makes it we're just feminized now, and we're emasculated, and you're emasculated for being. Can you touch on that?
So the thing is, feminism just didn't come out of nowhere. It's like the civil rights movement didn't come out of nowhere. There was a time when they weren't being treated right, and it created a response. And now that movement has been hijacked by flaming libtards. There's no doubt about that. And there have been times in history where men did have all the power, and they abused that power. And it caused women to rise up and stand against things. And all those movements always get hijacked, and they always end up taking things too far. But again, these things happen when there is failure to lead. And so, yeah, feminism is horrible, but so is not taking care of your wife. So is beating your wife. These are terrible things. And so it's like are you for unions or against unions? Well, again, I'm fine either way, but there was a time unions were very, very important because workers were treated terribly. And so that ended up kind of being the response. And then I think unions in some places have too much power. And so again, a lot of movements are often responses to wrongs that are done. And the reality is, if you are a biblical husband, a good husband, if you are following the principles of the Bible, I don't believe you'll have a rebellious wife. But I don't believe she will usurp her authority. I agree with Pastor Anderson. She wants you to lead. She wants you to rule over her. But you know what she doesn't want? She doesn't want to be abused. She doesn't want to be mistreated. She doesn't want to be neglected. And so if you are failing to do what you have been called to do as a husband, you very well could get a sinful response from your wife. That's why the Bible says, too, for your children, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. If you as a father are abusing your children, you are probably going to get a sinful response from them. And that sinful response is just that. It's sinful. But you provoked them. And the last thing we need is to be provoking people. We live in a world where there are going to be offenses. Woe unto the world because of offenses. But, you don't want to be the one causing the offense. So, again, there's been, because of a lot of bad treatment of women in the past, it created feminism. And so I think if we actually did a good job of following the principles of the Bible and taking care of our wives like God said, I don't think we would have feminism. And I don't think there's always going to be the psycho blue hairs out there, but everybody's going to look at them like, who wants to be those people? These women who submit to their husbands, and they have husbands who love them, that are taking care of them. This looks great, but again, what I'm being shown from New IFB preaching for sure isn't something I would want for my family. It's for sure not something I would want for my daughters. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. And so the reality is, you just making this about like it's a stand against feminism. It's a false dichotomy that they're creating. And some of us can see right through it. Some of us know the difference between preaching and manipulation. And a lot of manipulation going on. No, the New IFB is not for abuse. And no, my wife is not for promoting feminism, and none of the pastors who have stood against Pastor Anderson are promoting feminism. They are condemning his behavior. And the New IFB that is supporting Pastor Anderson, they're not for abuse, but they are terrified of Pastor Anderson, and they refuse to stand against him because they're cowards. And all they got left, it's prophetic, ladies and gentlemen. That's all they got left. And you know what? They should be alone because they're weird. They're bad. The teaching is horrible, and it's not producing anything good. I want nothing to do with it. I don't want connected to it. I would rather have Shelly's Railathon out there about me than his video apologizing and being nice. And so, again, and say all you want.
And I want to touch too on Pastor Shelley very quickly. I know we're going long. Everyone's watching, but everyone's watching. But he is all about not giving Sodomites the victory. But this past weekend, he shut the doors very vindictively on a church that is a soul-winning King James church. Shut the doors, padlocked it. Which biblically, morally, ethically he should not have been able to do.
Well,
because it was technically an independent church.
You know what I do not support ever? People taking over another church's bank account.
Yeah.
Even if it's steadfast.
Yeah. And we didn't support it back with that other stuff too.
I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's wrong. I don't respect people trying to take over the building, hijacking the name, any of that stuff, even if it's against steadfast. To me, when it comes to the reforms I believe need to take place in steadfast, I believe the church needs to do those things. But I don't think they will because of the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And that's the type of people. I mean, if you listen to the Rail-a-thon, the way he preached there, again, he is trying to get anyone out of that church with a backbone. And I'm sure that's already been done. And all he's going to have is weirdos and freak shows, and he's going to keep having guys coming to him that are talking to him about how they beat the blank out of their wife.
Well, just remember, if you hear around Facebook that the kids are being paid to slander, that's a diversion tactic.
Yep.
And
Drink your Kool-Aid.
I'm almost wondering if Shelley was trying to shut that down before and just conveniently found the check that was written and used that as his go-to, as his excuse. So just don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them manipulate you and, do the diversion tactics, because that's all that's been for the last 3 weeks. And that's why I've been under attack. And that's why even they're attacking my children for defending their parents, because they know the stuff they're saying is not true. So, I don't know. Do we care about being the target?
No. I'd rather be a target than a friend. So that's how low I think of them. And yeah, it is. It's shameful, and I regret any support I ever gave to that movement. But again, I got involved before Shelley, before Thompson, before Mejia.
You gave Pastor Anderson a chance.
I gave him.
That's what we do with people.
I gave him a ton of grace because
we do that with people,
because he does get treated bad. Even in this situation, I don't think he should have been thrown in the nut house.
Yeah.
And if you want to know who's helped Pastor Anderson more than anybody, it look credible, are the stinking sodomites, the haters of God out there, the legitimate heretics that are always trying to make him out to be a heretic and stuff like that. Everybody needs to stick to the legitimate issues.
Right.
But in the Baptist world, in the old IFB world, unfortunately for them, they just hate him because, for a lot of it, is because of areas where they're wrong that he's calling out. And so they have embraced anything that's against him, and you just discredited yourself with that. And you caused people like me, who saw through all that, to think that, he must be okay. And so, I've had several preachers tell me that they told me so about him, but they didn't tell me so, because everything they told me that was wrong about him, wasn't what was wrong with him. It was the things that they didn't like were areas where he's right. And so obviously, I had one preacher like, there's something wrong, because he told me several things. He's like, I can't put my finger on it. There's something wrong with that guy. It's like, okay, well, I told him, I was like, if I find out what it is, I'll move on.
We found out what it was.
Yeah. And I did. And so, but yeah, that's what you can't lie. Don't try to lock them up in the loony bin, people. Come on. Don't do, some of y'all are just taking this too far.
Don't do underhanded things.
Don't be calling the cops and sending the cops out there all the time. And the sodomites, they ruined that. Because think about this. Had it not been for the sodomites, just who hated him for all the wrong reasons, always doing these false reports and things on him, all the swatting that they've done on him, it might have meant something when his children came forward and said something. But they ruined that. You stinking sodomites, you ruined it for yourself. It ended up working against you.
Yeah.
Because you all kept crying wolf, and now the authorities, they don't trust anything that's said against them. So, those who listen to this program, you don't need to lie. We don't need to do that kind of thing. Don't be so desperate to take them down. You're willing to just use any means. That is wrong. And same thing with Pastor Anderson's kids. Don't lie. Don't tell things that are irrelevant. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be saying that's a distraction.
Just state what happened. State the facts. State his hypocrisy.
Right. Because even everybody too that's against Pastor Anderson, they don't want to hear anyone referring to their father as some of the things that he's been referred to.
Yeah.
That's very off-putting when you hear that. But at the same time too, this is where everybody's at. And this is why, too, they're criticizing people say, well, I don't care if it turns out to not be true. Here's what they mean by that. It's like, this is so horrible. The things they're accusing him of are so horrible that if that's the case, he needs to go. But if they're lying, again, look at what he produced. This is abnormally wicked if that's the case.
So then why
Either
would
way.
anyone take
Yeah. And so then for him
advice
to
on-
give parental advice in a sermon, it's like, dude, that's like Rosie O'Donnell giving diet advice.
Your comparisons
It's like,
are so funny.
it's like Elizabeth Taylor giving in marriage advice on how to keep a husband.
Yeah.
You know? It's like,
I know.
so.
All right, I'm done.
All right.
I'm hoping I just want to move on. So yeah.
Oh, I ain't done.
No, he's not done.
So, all right. We'll see y'all later.